release of a podcast originally recorded in 2012, an interview with Maverick that lasted almost 2.5 hours. We've divided it into 2 parts to make it easier for you to listen to. This is part 1.
Okay, and we're back for our... And we open with the regular class of the show leading off. This week's show is going to be a little bit different. Normally, obviously, you've all seen that we spend some time on some topics, and then somewhere around the middle of the show, we bring in somebody that we'd like to spend some time with and talk about the game or the history of the game or just interview in general. But this week, we're going to add somebody to the show for basically the entire show. We think this is somebody that you'll all be very interested in hearing from. Tonight's guest will be Maverick or Storm. Personally, I'm a fan of Delusional Dave Diamond. He'll be joining us, and we are going to cover all kinds of topics from the game, from his time in the game, from his time as a commissioner, from his work as a player. We'll talk about the fact that his USOBs are worthless. We've got lots of topics. Before we go and click the button and bring him on, does anybody want to jump in and offer any thoughts on Maverick before we bring him on?
I have to make a retraction from last week. Well, not really a retraction, but there was a lot more involved in the whole Geno Lars feud and CCW, and I may have called him a dumbass before I was actually suspended, but it just just thought I'd throw that out there. There were some issues with that.
Clearly, Tim felt the need to clarify some of the points that you made. Good for you for making a retraction.
We were a little rushed. We probably noticed some continuity issues. We recorded a little out of order last week, and we were up against the time we needed to be off here, so didn't get to go into quite as many details as I would have liked.
Well, I think that one of the things that I'll throw out there, if we're doing retractions and kind of looking back on it, I'd like to clarify for a number of people that given the choice and not exclude power-based members from my list would have been entirely power-based members. I think there's some perception around there that I ignored some people that have done a lot of work for Federation X and making it what it was, and that's not the case at all. What I tried to do was not have people on my list simply because they worked on the power base, because that was going to be an easy answer. So since we're taking the moment to retract and clean things up, that's my little ad from last week's feedback. Price doesn't have anything to retract because he only says 4 things all show.
Yeah, I aim to get 4 laughs. I go silent.
You go silent, but your computer makes a hell of a lot of it.
Click, 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 click.
I do try to mute as much as I can, but my clicking just takes over.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and see if we can bring Eric into the show and get him on. We are calling him on his phone, so let's see how this works out for us. Calling him right now. Eric, are you with us? Eric, are you with us?
I guess so.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm here.
No problem. You just leaving openings for Jason and Jason to pile on, so.
Well, I accidentally hit the mute button when I went to answer the phone. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maverick, the most technically sound commissioner of all time.
What's Skype?
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, thanks for joining us and making this happen. I understand that you've got all kinds of stuff going on, and these days, Federation X and the game in general isn't really part of it. We wanted to have you on, and as soon as we found out we were going to, we typically spend a little time bouncing some emails around and coming up with just lists of topics to talk about and questions to ask. Jordan put together an outstanding list of questions, so much so that I didn't even bother doing my normal coordinating to get everything lined up. Unfortunately, Jordan's not with us yet, and we'll have to add him when he gets here. But
okay.
But I think what we're going to do is start by just spending some time talking about your time as Storm, because I know that Jordan really wants to talk to you about some of your work as Maverick.
Well, yeah, I don't know what to say about Storm. Storm was kind of a character that, believe it or not, I came up with while I was playing Raw is War on my PlayStation. I came up with the name of JP Storm when the JP didn't actually stand for anything, and then I found CyberSlam, and I couldn't think of a name to come up with, so I just put in Storm, and he was just kind of a, I don't know really what he was when I started out. But, you know, as I spent more time and I got to know people like you and, you know, hanging around Lars and guys like Papa Guido and Jericho and things, I started to develop the character. And, you know, over the years, I've come up with a background, and you know, for him and his entire family, with Maverick and you know, his sister and, you know, the people he's been involved with, and he's actually kind of taken on his own persona. I mean, I can actually sit here and give you a detailed history almost back to his birth. That's how, you know, invested I got in the character. I know a lot of people will look at some of the things I've said and go, oh, well, you know, you're kind of following HBK because we know you're an HBK mark, which is the truth. He's like my idol. But he's just, he's been with me for so long, and I've used him for so long. I mean, it takes me little or no effort to do anything with him. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons I've been having trouble and why I left, because it's got to the point where it's a little bit too easy. You know, if you follow what I mean, it's just, it's actually gotten more difficult to write with him because I feel like I've shoestringed myself into one single character.
Well, I can tell you, Eric, that we discussed that a little bit, and Miller has a different theory on why you keep leaving.
Why is that? Because I'm scared of Geno?
Well, it wasn't really a theory. It was just more of a joke. I was going to ask you if you're going to leave this interview after 2 questions like you do to our feuds. You keep coming back and starting.
You know, honestly, I don't know what it is. You know, Jeff has been doing this for years on end, and other people have done it for years on end. And then you have guys who, you know, from C-Slam all the way through Wrestle. I was around for a while, then I left after I quit as CEO of Wrestle because I had just been fed up with the whole thing. You know, you try to run a place and you try to play mediator with everybody, and after so many years, it gets to the point where you can't take it anymore. And then I came back to Wrestle, and you know, things kind of went south with that. And then Jeff and I decided, you know, we wanted to do something with FedEx because I knew of FedEx from before, and I really got into it. But after that, the first King of the Ring tournament that we had, I burned out. Doesn't even describe the level that I was at.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That was a brutal run.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't like I had, you know, easy milking opponents, you know, somebody I could just waltz over. I mean, that first match that I had with Haley, that was probably one of the best matches I ever had, as far as you know, tit for tat. You know, everything I would throw out, it was like Haley knew where I was going with it, so it was forcing me to change it, and it kept turning into, you know, who could. I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to use. Like, who could outbait who? It was brutal. I mean, and then the match I had with Jeff just took everything else out of me, and even the match that I had with Jordan. You know, when I came out and I threw out the little thing about, okay, well, guess what? Maverick's baby with Kitty was actually your baby. I thought for sure I had him, and then when he came out and did what he did at the end of the match, I thought for certain he sunk my boat. I thought there was no way I was going to get him for the way he sold that. But you know, after time, it got to the point where, honestly, I haven't been in the mood to write. When I write, I feel like I'm working. It's not fun. But having said that, I don't know how many times I've told Jeff, I really want to come back, and I don't know if Storm is hindering me at this point, and maybe that's why I can't write, or what it is. It's just every time I start writing, I feel like I'm doing work, and it's not fun.
So I'm not fun to feud with. I'm boring. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I mean, honestly, when you and I were talking about what we were talking about, it really got me intrigued. But then we were having the stable war matches. And I'm reading these matches, and I've told Jeff this before. Like last time he was down here visiting with us, I said, dude, I don't mind setting up the stories. I don't mind telling the stories. But if I have to write one more elbow and collar tie up, and then I drop kick him, and he dropped, I mean, it's over and over. You know what I mean? It's that tedium. And as soon as it started feeling like work, I was just like, there's no way I can do this. So, and I can't get into a feud with somebody like you and give you a half-assed effort, because that doesn't do you any justice, and it doesn't do me any justice.
So who can you get into a feud with and give a half-assed effort to?
Yeah, I'm great for a half-assed feud anytime. That means I can be half-assed.
Well, the last half-assed, let me think here. Who is it that I faced in the second? Oh, yeah, McCormick, the guy who stabbed me in the gut and basically killed me, but then I had to sell another match and like 2 matches with the horrible gut wound. Anybody remember that?
I do, yeah.
I'll never forget reading that post, and I'm going, really? You just shivved me in the stomach. And then you twisted it around. I mean, how is my character not dead, like, right now? And I have to sell this.
It's too bad that Jordan's not here for this, because he and I had a real go-round on the issue of...
No, I would probably...
Is there a hurricane going on in Florida? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you had a real go-around with what?
Is there a hurricane going on in Florida? Is that what that noise is?
You guys hearing background? I'm like in the quietest room. No, I would hope there's not a lot of noise. I think I'm in the quietest room in my house.
Sounds like high winds.
Sounds like he's on the highway.
Hold on. hang on a minute. Let me, is that any better?
That's exactly the same. No, that did nothing.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to have a show where, or maybe a couple of shows where we spent some time.
I don't know. I've got a fan on out here, but I mean, it's not a...
Yeah, I agree.
Our next guest, Optimus Prime, everybody.
Let's take a moment and talk about the fact that for a long time, I think the reputation everybody remembers for Storm was that he was the most manipulative bastard in the game. And let's talk about what you think made that reputation for you.
Well,
what made
Eric,
that reputation for me? Well,
Eric, do you remember the post where that was first brought up?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up on me. I only caught part of that.
I said, do you happen to remember the exact post where we called you a manipulative bastard?
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do right after the Binky the Party Squirrel adventure.
No, it was actually about a year. I would say about a year after, when we were all in.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot what Fed we were in, and I think again Static had the idea of let's try to buddy up with Storm again, and I think his post had us in a cafeteria or something like that, and you again tried to make us do something ridiculous, and he walked up to you and called you a manipulative bastard, and you basically ran with it and turned it into something huge.
You are right. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that. I honestly, I think he would be able to answer that question, because he's the one that gave me the moniker to begin with. But based on the fact that I've been made fun of on several occasions for the fact that I tend to swerve everybody. I started doing that back in IRCW, and I continued doing it in the CWF and in the CFL, and I continued it in WrestleNet, and Honestly, the only person that I swear to God, this is the God's honest truth, the only person that I've ever had Storm be friends with in game that I did not swerve was Geno. I'm pretty sure I've swerved every single person I've ever teamed with, period.
Yeah, you swerved Excess and Ed when you went to when you screwed up corporate America.
That was Max's fault.
And Jeff was actually upset. He was upset.
To be fair, I wasn't upset about the swerve. I was upset that the swerve didn't take place on the boards. And I'll defend this till the end. You swerve a guy on the boards, you don't set it up on as an out of character thing. That's how I play, and I thought it was wrong. And let me tell you, I sunk a pile of money into making sure that we were all going to be strong for that corporate America run, since I knew the network was going to kick us in the balls. Dude, if you're going to swerve me, don't let me give Burnt my money. There's nothing I hate more than giving Burnt my money.
Well, now to be fair, and to put my 2 cents in on this, and Max can get pissed if he wants to. I literally took that opportunity to follow rather than lead, and he just came to me one day and goes, "Hey, let's do this," and I was like, "That'll stir up some shit. Why not?" So, and it stirred up some shit because I don't think Jeff and I spoke for like 8 months.
I didn't have anything to say.
He was really. Let me tell you something. That was some of the dirtiest hash slinging I ever saw between Ed and Storm in my life. We were all up. I mean, it was just fuck you, fuck you. It was just. It was bad.
I'll tell you, Billy would never admit this. I think he saw that we were close and we were going to take a real run at the network, and I don't think he wanted to tarnish his reputation and take the chance that he might lose. Because there's no way that angle you guys went and run was worth that swerve. It was crap.
Demon family drama?
Yeah, Demon family emo drama, Twilight before it was cool. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I will say this: it's not. When we did it, you know, Bill and I were, "Oh no, we're so cool." Hindsight, yeah. If I could do that over again, I probably would not have done that. Yeah,
I think
not as cool as we thought.
We put together a stable that really could have challenged the network. I mean, it was going to be a 2-stable race, and when it blew up, I mean, the stable wars was over. There were no challengers after that.
You know, actually, let me interject one other thing here, too, because I forgot about this. One of the main reasons I decided to follow Bill around on this one is, and I hope I remember the name correctly, was it Juan Shan?
Yep, it was.
We're in UCE, which at the time was the most god-awful fed I'd ever been in. And Bill and I are in there, and then we find out that he's supposed to be our stablemate. Now, I've hated this guy since day one. Not the guy behind him, but the character. I just could not stand him. And I pretty much made a stand as that if I have to be teaming with him, screw you guys. And that's when I decided to go with what Bill said.
Wasn't it Randy who said, "Let's let him in briefly," and then we kicked him out, and then he wanted him back in, or somebody wanted him back in? That was around, that was definitely within a couple of days of when it happened. I remember that.
You're not wrong. Juan and Randy were actually working together and reasonably well, given that Juan's propensity is to walk into a room, shoot you, and then go, "Okay, let's have a match."
So true. Of course, we are talking about the same commissioner who actually believes that I beat Nighthawk once for the Canadian Championship in CWA, which we all know was a farce.
Don't steal my thunder. I see that Jordan is making himself available. So
I'm here, guys. Hi. Mortal Kombat was fun.
Hey. Let's take a second here and throw another question. You know, we've covered how Storm started out, and we've talked about, you know, where the moniker "the most manipulative bastard" came from. Now that time is kind of done, are you happy with where Storm ended up? Are you pleased about who he is?
No, I'm not, and I'll tell you why. Storm started out as basically something to do when I was bored. I thought I'd give my try at something. I got into the game. I really enjoyed him being. I've always liked being a bad guy. I won't lie. Everybody says, "Oh, playing a bad guy is easier." I play a bad guy for one reason and one reason only. I don't care what happens to the bad guy in the end. The bad guy always seems to have way more fun than the good guy. So, as we developed the story, though, as Hawk became involved and things of that nature.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hold on 1 second. I need to get set up. Hold on. Gotta get set up.
Okay, well, get set up quietly. Eric's answering a question for us.
Okay. No, it's not a problem. But anyway, as things started to...
Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wow.
As things started to progress with Nighthawk, and then with Faith, and then Nighthawk talking about the Faith child and this, that, and the other thing, and I started integrating some things in my stories that had to do with my own personal beliefs or disbeliefs about religion, God, and so forth. My ultimate goal with Storm was to, and you probably could notice it in the last couple times I've been around, that he's trying to redeem himself for all the things he's done wrong. He's run his entire life from what was supposed to be his destiny as told to him by Nighthawk. And I have not yet been able to fully tell that story. Am I satisfied with the character up until now? Yes. Is this the way I wanted to see him go out? No. Is this the reason I might bring him back and try to finish it one day? Absolutely.
All right. I think Jordan's having a couple of technical problems, so we'll let him see if he can regroup and get that sorted. And while we let him do that, I've got a couple other questions for you since we're talking Storm, unless one of the Jasons has one they want to jump in with.
I'm good.
Now, do you want to put the emphasis on good when you say that?
Good.
Attaboy. So, Eric, you played Storm forever. Like you say, he became like a glove. You just put him on and wore him because you were, so into the character, you knew everything about him. When you look back on him, what's your high point with Storm and what's your low point? At some point you did something with Storm that you look back on and go, I wish that didn't happen. And at some point you're looking back and you're like, that was the moment with Storm. What are they?
The moment with Storm and some people may say, the winning an Ultimate Championship, or when we came up with the idea to combine the Ultimate Championship with the toughest SOB and things like that, but that never was really that big a deal to me. What really stood out in my mind was Storm the most, and you guys touched on this on one of your previous podcasts that I listened to. By the way, love the snoring thing. It had to be the Superstar title run along with the King of the Ring. I don't
King
think
of Wrestling.
The King of Wrestling. I'm sorry, King of Wrestling.
There goes word.
I don't think at any other time with Storm was I ever on my game like I was then. And Jeff sat there and he goes, hey, if you hold this belt for so long, you're going to be a record holder. And that kind of gave me the drive and desire to go out there. But then you stack me against opponents like Haley and Rude and Allen. And these are people that you can't just come on and, okay, I'm going to try. You have to bring your A game or you might as well stay home. And I don't think I had a better run with Storm than that period with the Superstar title and then the tournament.
Yeah, it was a good 2 months before you even got to the King of Wrestling where you held it down.
Yeah, and at the King of Wrestling, and not only that, it wasn't a lot of people. I heard some chatter, oh well, he's just doing this to try to impress people by putting the title on the line in every match. That's not why I did it. I did it because it was another way to motivate me to try to be my best, because I wanted that brass ring. I wanted the final to be me and Allen, and I wanted to be able to beat him one-on-one. And I wasn't. I didn't beat him, and that's all there is to it. And I know I had some gripes. I know I had some complaints. I know Jordan and I talked about it, and I wasn't very receptive at the time because I really felt I beat him. But in hindsight, when I go back and I read that match now, it's pretty cut and dry. You know, it was a great match, no doubt about it. But I killed myself. And I think maybe it was because I drove myself too hard. So,
Yeah,
as far as low points with Storm, I could go back to, man, there's a number of low points with Storm. The first post I ever did in IRCW was like a big block post. How about that? There were no breaks, no nothing. It just looked like one big paragraph.
All right, guys. Jordan is with us now, so I think we've got technical issues wrapped up, right, Jordan?
Yeah.
Perfect. We spent a little bit of time while we were waiting for you talking to Eric and just getting him to run us through kind of the genesis of where Storm came from. We started with Storm because I know you've got a lot of issues you really want to tackle related to Mav, and I didn't want to tread on any of that. So now that you're here, how about we jump away from some of the Storm questions? We still have some to come back to later, and just let you get into the beginning of where you wanted to start.
All right. First of all, good to hear from you, Mav.
You too.
All right, so to get this started out, when you returned to CWA, I think this was back in, I want to say, '05 or so, how did that come about? Because you came back, you had Lars and Accident and a bunch of other older guys come back, and what were your goals coming back?
I believe you're talking about when I took over. Are you talking about near the time when I took over NGPW from Chevs, and of course he went on that big tangent about how I manipulated everybody to get the spot?
Well, this was just before that when you were in CWA, because before you hadn't been in Wrestle in a bit, and then you came and just took over CWA. You brought it back to a bingo hall. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Okay, I remember what you're talking about. Yeah, I had not been in the game for a while, and
to be fair, neither had I at that point.
Yeah. And I make a habit, and you guys probably don't, nobody knows it, but I still check, FedEx every now and then too. I just go by, see what's going on, and I just remember how I was really upset with the way CWA was being run. I mean, because let's be honest, there's feds out there, and everybody, gets a chance to commission here, commission there. CWA was not just some fed; it was a fed that I made, and I built from the ground up with really good talent that came with me from Cyberslam that I asked to come over. And I mean, the way I ran CWA from the start, we're an independent fed. Well, we held our first card in a barn. I mean, we spent months in a bingo hall until we won a Fed Wars and became what did they call it? National? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, national. And we became a national. I mean, I wouldn't even let my guys call the heavyweight title a world title. That's what you have to call the heavyweight title because it doesn't get world status until we become a national. So I had seen the state that it was in. And Philly, if I remember correctly, wasn't too happy with the guy that was running the Fed anyway. And then he offered me the job, and I would have been crazy not to jump at the chance because, that's my baby. I mean, I loved all the feds that I ran as a commissioner, but there was nothing closer to my heart than CWA because I literally deemed that was my brainchild. I mean, granted it's only in Canada, it's not that big of a, brainchild, so to speak, but it was mine. I created that, and so that's why I came back. And when I came back, I wanted to bring it back to what it was before, so I started going out and trying to find people that I knew I could rely on, like the Eds and the Rudes and the XSs and the guys that I had played with before that I knew were going to bring, a quality game to the table. Because, I mean, how many of us have been in feds before where there's like 2 or 3 of us that are really good and the rest of us are just kind of, and there's nothing, you get bored after a while.
Right.
So that was pretty much my sole motivation because, I mean, right now, I wouldn't go back there now if they offered it to me because I don't want anything to do with them. But
We'll have some more CDB-related stuff to get to in just a little bit, but to go back to just specific commissioning, you're known as probably the most notorious or infamous role-playing commissioner that's ever played the game. What is your philosophy about making role-playing commissioners, and how should a role-playing commissioner act?
That's a really good question, and I have to admit that my idea to make Maverick an interactive commissioner, I have to give the man his kudos where kudos are due, comes from none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I'm thinking, well, that's what I see on TV, so hell, I might as well run it like that myself. And at first it was a copycat thing, but then I started to, get engaged in storylines, and I noticed that if I got involved in certain things, it would pick up activity and things of that nature. So, at first it was just kind of a copycat thing. And then I would come in and I would, wax and wane with it a little bit. Depends. If my Fed was doing good and activity was going great, I could just sit there and do nothing. And the other time, I used it as a kind of a motivational tool a lot to try to get more people to role play. But then it kind of took on a life of its own. For instance, and Jordan, you remember this because you and I were very, very active in NGPW together, as with me as the mission, you the wrestler. It was getting to the point where I couldn't find anywhere else to play and have fun because all the people I wanted to play with were in the Fed I was running because I wanted them in my Fed.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, definitely.
I tried out a time in UCE, I didn't like it. I tried out show, I didn't like it. So, yeah, and I mean, unbeknownst to a lot of people, at some points, I actually started running characters in my own Fed, like Calgary Kid, you might remember, and I know Carissa Rain was a perfect example. I mean, nobody had a clue. I mean, I actually at one time got emails from other people in my Fed going, why don't you ever give her title shots? I'm like, well, I can't tell you why, because it's me, and I don't want to seem biased. And then I realized that the people were actually noticing that she wasn't getting them, so I would put her in situations to get some, and then I would make sure she lost.
Sean Justice is one, too.
Like I said, yes, Sean Justice is one. Yes, I forgot about Sean. But, at first it was, like I said, first it was a copycat thing. Huh?
Eric, why didn't you just tell them she's not getting title shots because she's a chick?
Well, because that's your MO. I'll just let you handle that.
So,
but that was pretty much it.
To continue the role-playing commission topic there, question is, do you have some angles that you regret doing that you wish you could go back and just, man, I wish I'd never done that?
There is one that comes to mind. That of all the people on this phone call, Jordan will be the one that he's most familiar with it. And it's going to be kind of an odd thing. I don't regret so much having that role play between you and I and Kitty, because I'm going to tell you right now, Maverick's not known for role play, but that was probably some of the best role play I ever did. We had some outright epic feuds, but I was also, I'm not going to get into too many details, but some of you guys know this because I've talked to you about it, but that was during a time in my life where I was having a lot of issues.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about you during that time. We talked a lot, if you recall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a 6-month period there where I pretty much checked out of life, and my life consisted of me sitting in front of the computer and writing. And I wish that hadn't impacted the angle so much and the story that we were writing. I would not change the story itself as far as Maverick and Rude were concerned, because it was epic. But yeah, you start getting messages from people going, when did Mav turn into such, a pussy whip this, or, I mean, like, it's like Jeff said, he was Edward Cullen before Edward Cullen, I mean, if I could change anything, I would change that.
I'd like to point out that the rest of us don't know who Edward Cullen is.
Who?
Exactly.
Well, my wife made me watch Twilight, so screw you.
That's because your wife loves you so much.
Yeah, right.
There was definitely a point during some of that, actually, where I distinctly remember you struggling with some of the old school players. Some of the Bloods come to mind. I know VIII was one of them, because they were pretty merciless about the fact that they were going to really give you a hard time over the fact that that's the type of angle you were in at the time, and that's what you were selling on. I remember that period, and you got backlash for that.
Oh, absolutely. Vig and I, who had been friends for a very long time, We actually got into some knockdown dragouts over over MSN that Lars actually had to come in and kind of mediate between the two of us because they didn't like this is wrestling and we're the Blood Brothers and you're supposed to go out there and bash people in the head with chairs and here you are being all lovey feely touchy drama and then they started with the drama tags and it just and honestly, yes, it was way too much drama, but that was just the mood. I was in a very dark place, and Jordan can attest, to the fact that it came out in Mav, walking down dark alleys in the middle of the night, just being pissed off and hating the world and everything. I mean, everything all the black I had inside was filtering through Maverick. And I didn't care. I told Viggy I didn't care. I said, you know what, if you never talk to me, I don't care. I said, this is what I need to do right now, and you just need to deal with it. But yes, you're right. I got a shitload of backlash from the guys that were supposed to be, blood brothers. Well, so much for the brother,
Right. Man, Lars is going to love hearing about this. So, speaking of the role-playing angle, does a role-playing commissioner run the risk of alienating those in his fed who might not want to play in his angle?
I would say it depends on the commissioner, and the reason I would say it because I would never willfully try to force somebody that Maverick was doing, and I did get backlash on occasion from people, I believe it was when Storm and Geno were conspiring behind Maverick's back. And it was the team Geno thing, Team Mav. And I had people come into me going, well, I don't want to be a part of it. I'm like, well, nobody told you had to be a part of it. No one said you had to join a team. You can do whatever you want to do. Because everybody knew that when I book by heat. If you have heat with somebody else that doesn't involve what I'm doing, that's fine. But I think as a commissioner, there's a very fine line you have to walk when you are role-playing. You have to pay attention to what's going on so that you don't alienate people. And I'm not going to say I was perfect. I'm sure I alienated a few people, and it wasn't intentional. But I don't see anything wrong with a commissioner wanting to get involved. I think a commissioner who gets involved and, maybe does a heel thing or kind of a face thing, it's not always a bad thing. You just have to not go overboard, and you just have to be careful with how you do it.
I agree.
We definitely got a lot of heat for that, but I think you did a good job of kind of deflecting it towards Geno and letting Geno take the heat, which is what a wrestler should do. And it helped what I was doing a lot, but I know we definitely got a lot of crap for that.
Oh, Miller just likes anything that makes him the center of attention.
This is the truth.
Yeah, but you want to know something as the commissioner of the aforementioned Miller, I have a soft spot for Geno. At least Maverick did for a long time, so does Storm. What can I tell you?
So, since we're talking about this, Eric, were there any commissioners that you've seen that did the role-playing commission wrong? Is there anybody you want to put on blast and say, this guy fucked up what you're supposed to do?
Oh, man. Let me think.
Besides Grayson.
Well, no, actually, when I really think back on the commissioners that I had Papa Guido, I had Lars, I had the unfortunate circumstance to be stuck under sanity clause in CFL, which was probably one of the most horrible commissioners to date.
How did that happen?
Because I got an invite to the CFL, and I said, sure, I'll take it. And then 2 weeks later, I was wanting to actually have my character shoot himself in the face for making that decision because it was miserable and horrible and everything else. But Papa Guido would role play with his character, with his crew sometimes. And he did it well. Lars would get involved every once in a while. He did a good job. Honestly, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head because somebody can refresh my memory. Who was running UCE after Keebler?
Well, there was Philly Fats, but he didn't really do too much.
The first one after Keebler.
The head?
Oh, no.
Dead Star?
Who?
Or was it Dead Star? No, Dark Star. I gotta remember the guy's name. Shit.
Dead Star was farther down. I know there was. There was Keebler, Fats, Callisto, the Head, and then Dead Star was further down. Dead Star was more like 2005, I think, or something. 6, 7, 8. I don't know.
Philly.
Yeah, honestly, I can't think of anybody that I actually was in a fed with as a player and had a commissioner that role played, I can't really think of a whole lot. A lot of people didn't do it, and a few people that did, I really didn't have a problem with because they seemed to do it the right way. And you know,
Okay.
when I started commissioning, the people that I gave credit to is helping me to be a better commissioner were Papa Guido, Lars, Judge, and even some of the pointers Jeff gave me, you know, because he'd been doing a little bit before I had started.
Okay. Switching topics there. If you could give commissioners playing now some advice to step up their game, or or improve themselves, what would you tell them to do?
It's very. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to kind of talk about that because the last time Jeff came down here and visited, we had a very long conversation about that and the way that you guys are running things in FedEx now. I see so much tension. I see so much potential that's just being pissed away by these guys who just either are, and I'm not trying to assault anybody who's playing right now. I'm really not. But based on what I've seen and based on what they can do, I don't know if it's laziness or apathy or the fact that they just don't care. They're just slapping the card together. If I was running a Fed in CWA right now, oh my God, I'd be having a field day. You know, you've got all these talents out there, and you've just got people booking people here and there. I would be out there looking for feuds. I would be trying to find the hottest feud I could find, having them on my card. You know, everybody, something I've always said too about Feds is everybody wants to run their Fed like a WWE clone. I would take advantage of the whole independent thing you guys kind of got going on. I know, do the ECW type of setup. You know, go to a bingo hall every once in a while. You know, take some pride in what you're doing. A lot of people, to me, it just seems like they're slapping cards together. When I came back, even though I was only there for 3 weeks, I was telling Jeff, I'm confused. I got people booking me here, and I got people booking me here, and nobody's telling me who's booking me. I didn't even know I had a match. You know, the only person that reached out to me was, I want to say it was Titus.
It was.
And he was offering me a spot on his roster, like an exclusive thing. And I was like, well, why not? Because I had planned on staying around for a while. Unfortunately, I kind of left, and I felt bad that I did that to him. But, you know, had I been in his shoes, and Ed came back, and I would be like, Ed, I want you to be in my Fed. Man, I'm going to tell you right now, you would have heard about that all day long, every day until his first match. I would have blown that up like it was the biggest thing since microwave pizza. So, but, you know, to kind of simplify it, like I said, I think they need to pay a little bit more attention. The people need to book by feuds. You have amazing opportunities in what you guys have made right now, and nobody's grasping at any of it.
I think they're starting to figure it out, but they haven't kind of flipped the switch to execute it yet. I know from conversations with both Billy Hicks and Ridgway that I think they're looking and they're understanding it. I think both of them have already said, I'm going to go to fewer cards so that I can get guys more committed to building up, because if you don't have something to give me, why would I want you on the card?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you know, when you take a job as a Mish, a lot of people, and I do this from my time in Wrestle when I used to, you know, get applications for people who wanted to be commissioners. And one of the questions would be, you know, why do you want to be a commish? And I actually had people send me applications that said stuff to the effect of, I want to be in charge. Okay, well, guess what? You can consider yourself not even going to be on the list. You know, being a commish is not, okay, I got to make a card once a week, and then I got to make results once a week, and I just got to make sure nobody's, violating any policies. And no. It's a lot of work. You have to read the boards. You have to read the posts. You have to understand the intricacies of storylines, alliances, rivals, all those things. You know, you're going to get your best work from people who are invested in the stories and the feuds that they're in. You just can't go, okay, well, let's see, Ed and Rude are trying to kill each other, but hey, you know what, I'm going to stick Ed up against, you know, Joe Schmo, and I'm going to put Rude against, you know, who's him or what's it, and let's hope they get a good match. You can't do that because everybody starts to lose interest. You know, and especially in the environment you guys have created, you just can't read your own board. You need to be reading other people's boards so that you can go out and get those hot feuds and those, you know, red hot stories and get them into your Fed.
So here's the thing: if you book the feud too soon, you run the risk of it kind of petering out because there's a resolution. How do you balance that?
For me, from my experience, it depended upon the nature, of the feud. I mean, I'm trying to think of it. Well, a good example, again, I hate to keep going back to it, but was the feud with Mav and Rude. It was never, I mean, it was really, it took us a long time to settle that, and quite, technically, it was never settled because the two of them still hate each other's guts. And, that's an example. I'm not saying that that's something that we ran over and over and over again, but, some feuds have the wherewithal to carry on more than a month or two. You can book them. You can do little things like, does anybody remember, oh my God, now I'm going to forget his name myself. Crap, I swear to God, I can't remember his name. You guys might remember. We were in CWA, and I was feuding with him with Storm. And every single time I was scheduled, we'd be scheduled in tag matches, or we'd be scheduled in triple threats. And every time Storm was about to get his hands on him, the guy would run away. And it just drove me crazy. And
that sounds like Genocide, actually.
I don't know if it was Geno. It was...
No, Geno would have feigned an injury and just refused to be in the match and sent somebody like nondescript to fight in his place.
Right, but when you got it, basically, know your people, know your storytellers, know your guys who are feuding. Like I said, if you and like Rude and Ed got into a fight and they had a big feud, I know that that's something that I could ride for 2 months, maybe even 2.5, almost 3, depending upon how you guys played it out. And then there's other guys that you can tell. Shorter attention spans, they're gonna, this might peter out in a month. I honestly believe it's just something you get a feel for after you work with people for a while. It's not something that's easy to do, and there have been times where I've not been able to balance it, and I've actually killed the feud by going overboard myself, so.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I don't know if that's an answer, but that's the best I can give you.
Well, that's a good answer. Now, here's another one I have. Say, for example, Jeff dies tomorrow. Sorry, Jeff. But he's dead, all right? And power over FedEx and the whole game is over to you, Eric. What direction do you take it? You are now the CEO. You're in charge of everything. Jeff is dead.
Well, first I'd have to get drunk for a week because my friend died.
Fair enough.
And then after that, wow. That is a really, really good question, and that one's kind of got me.
Okay.
I can think of an answer for you. When FedEx first started, I understood what it was Jeff was trying to do, and I agreed with what he was trying to do because I had spent months arguing with ICE in particular about what direction Russell was going. And I don't care what anybody at Russell wants to say, and I don't care who wants to blast me for saying it later. I think we've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that most of the people at Russell could not function or thrive in a place like FedEx. Because FedEx is not about an ATM, FedEx is not about a sim. It's about the work that you put into it. It's about the story you tell. It's about the feud. It's about talent. It's about desire and God-given abilities. And that's the vision that he had for it, and that's the vision that I shared with him. Or actually, let me say, he allowed me to share with him. And I think the only thing I could say is if I wound up taking over, I would probably just try to do the best I could to continue the vision that he had and that he shared with me and that I have. And that's about the only answer I can give you.
That's beautiful, man. What do you think of that, Jeff?
Well, I think he's being really generous to say that it was my vision that I shared with him. I think it's just when you look around and you see some of the top tier guys, there's a reason that, FedEx evolved from guys like Lars and myself and Diggsy to begin with and went through. I mean, when we rhyme off the list of names of guys who've been in FedEx, there's a reason that the prominent names are all guys you look at and think, man, that is a hell of a player. The vision isn't unique. Good players recognize the idea of what should be important to the game, and I think that's why when we came around to doing it a second time, Eric was like, let's do that. And as I recall it, it might have been his idea the second time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember bringing it up to Jeff because I had, I was in the forums. I was reading about what was going on, and it was basically, hey, there was a glitch in the lottery, and, we gave you guys all this money, but, by the way, fuck you, give it back. Excuse me? You had a problem. You knew about the problem. You allowed it to continue after you knew about the problem. Now you're going to fuck your customers. So I took a stand. Jeff took a stand with me, and then we left and took damn near all NGBW with us.
I was lonely.
I think we did what was right.
I was so lonely.
You had me, Jason.
Exactly. I was so lonely.
Oh, fuck you.
I was there.
You were. You helped.
Me and Cedric and his coin and his flipping coin.
That's right.
Exactly. So one more question related to actually, no, I have another one. Okay. What do you want your legacy to be as, a commissioner? How would you like your commissioning style to be remembered as?
Well, and some people will believe me, some people won't. We all have egos. I'm not gonna lie. There's times, I've let my ego get the best of me. But truth be told, I have always felt that I get more credit than I deserve. I was proud of the fact that I got Storm and Maverick into the Hall of Fame at Wrestle. Now, granted, if you go back and look at the names that are in it now, I kind of wish I could have it removed. But having said that, I'm sorry, man. Honestly, it's like a Hall of Shame now, dude. Really,
Eric,
it is. I'm sorry.
Eric,
it really is.
I was the last person to be inducted before it closed down.
Well, I didn't.
I rested the case, Your Honor.
Yeah, that was the bullet to the head.
Obviously.
I never said everybody. I said most everybody.
No, don't apologize.
When you read, if you go there and you read some of the comments that people have said about me, and some of the comments that I've got from people about Maverick and their Storm, I do appreciate them, and I'm glad that there's people that like my work. But I've always felt that I'm just, I've never looked at myself more than mediocre. I really haven't,
I agree.
From the exception of the match with Jeff when I was a Storm, and I think that was just a lot of frustration from a long road culminating in a loss. And, but honestly, if people just looked at, Maverick and said, hey, he was a good commissioner, and I tried to care about everybody, and I tried to play mediator, and I tried to make everybody happy, and I did the best I could. And if everybody remembered me like that, as far as Maverick is concerned, I'd be happy. I never thought I was the best commish. I've always thought there were a lot better ones than me. And I appreciate the fact that the guys liked what I did. Huh?
Is Dead Star better than you? Dead Star, is he better than you, Commissioner?
You can just say no, and we can move on.
I don't want to. See, he's trying to check my ego. I can tell.
He's just trying to make fun of Dead Star. Is all he's doing.
Yep.
Troll.
It's true.
It's a troll.
If I'm gonna be honest, Dead Star was a nice guy. Dead Star, he was a nice guy. He was a shitty commish. I'm sorry. I couldn't book a feud to save his life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He just couldn't, man. He was a nice guy. I really liked him as a person, but I remember bitching many a night to Jeff going, what board is this guy reading? Because he's got me fighting somebody I've never even role-played with before. Yeah. So.
Speaking of people that you don't like,
just being honest,
there's a long history between you and Chevalier and you hating Chevalier. How did that start?
Well, I did have him swerve Chevalier, as you say.
Point blank, he's a pompous ass.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think you said something about Down syndrome.
You know, when I first, I'll tell you why I really got to dislike him. When I first met him through Judge, and he asked me, "Hey, you want to be one of the knights?" And I had this character that I wasn't really doing anything with. Why the hell not? Give me something to do. And I remember him, and this was at the time of the Moveless scandal, and I remember him getting up on his high horse, and, you know, you're bad, and you're bad, and you're bad, and you're bad, and you're bad. And then I get an email from him that says, and I quote, which I still have, by the way. The title of the email is "Read this, then burn your computer."
What?
He sent me the move list. He sent it to all his knights. So Mr.
Nice.
Self-Righteous, who's banging his drum, condemning everybody for cheating, sent out the move list to everyone. And from that moment on, I started to dislike him. And the more I got to know him, the more I talked to him, the more self-righteous he was. And I just don't have time for people like that. So, plus his stuff sucked. I'm sorry.
Is there another moment? Is there another moment besides that you could think of that is a great moment in Chevy hating history for you?
Well, I can remember a certain individual telling me something about some shady shit that was going on behind the scenes that really pissed me off, because that individual was my friend, and that kind of really made me angry that he did something like that. And I'm not going to get into any details, but
I know about that.
Person no.
Okay, so I have some Storm questions. I'm not sure how many you've asked so far. We're gonna switch gears to that unless anybody else wants to say anything.
No, but let me give you a rundown on where we were at when we were talking about Storm. We opened and Eric just kind of walked us through the origins of Storm and kind of a brief synopsis of how he went from A to Z and what he ended up being. We were just in the process of talking about his proudest accomplishment was Storm and his most embarrassing accomplishment was Storm. We asked him if he was happy with where Storm ended up. And I was just about to give him a really hard time about the fact that he's got 17 two-post comebacks in the last 3 years.
So he hasn't talked about the King of Wrestling then?
Yes.
Good, that's what I was getting ready to ask.
And with that, we'll wrap up part 1. We will bring you part 2 with the next release of the Federation X podcast, Running on Tangents.